Hey Internet, Eric here. Um, my movie thoughts, I discussed Stephen King's It, the 1990 miniseries with Tim Curry, and since it's been a couple weeks since it's been out, I believe it's been a couple weeks, maybe just a week, I don't know. I'm going to discuss the 2017 version of It. Now, if you're new to my channel, welcome, but I do discuss plot spoilers, specific characters and scenes. So I've already warned you in less than a minute that I do that. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you're watching this at your own risk. And I don't know what plot spoilers I'm going to discuss when I talk about these films. It's all off the top of my head. Okay, let's see here. Plot summary for this basically is kind of like the miniseries, which I'm not going to try to compare this film to that so much. It's the 1980s. We're following a group of 7 kids who are being tormented by this evil being that takes the form of a clown named Pennywise, and it knows all their fears and it feeds on them. And after the murder of Bill, the leader's younger brother Georgie, by this creature, and different instances where they're being terrorized by it, they get together, form this group to fight it and try to defeat it once and for all, because they know it comes back every 27 years, causes a bunch of bad things to happen in the town of Derry. Kids go missing, people die, yada yada yada. So they try to get together to stop it, at least until it slumbers, while also in a subplot dealing with a lot of the evil in a human form, which I'll get to. Alright, now, first off, my phone's upstairs, so I don't have Wikipedia in front of me. I don't write anything down, so when I'm discussing the actors, I'm just going to talk about the characters they play. And man, the acting is phenomenal in this film, I think. Stuttering Bill, the leader. First off, we meet him and his little brother Georgie, and I love the relationship between those two. The actors are fantastic together. They actually have a loving relationship. You can tell that they care about each other, and it's not overly lovey-dovey, schmaltzy, fake, like Lifetime movie feeling. It feels very genuine, and I really enjoy that. First off, I guess I'll just talk about Georgie. Georgie is in it for maybe 5 minutes, but this little kid does a really good scene, really good acting, especially when we see him later as a apparition. Really creepy, really good. Very cute. But then the kid who plays Stuttering Bill, real likable. I believe him when he stutters this time, because it's not so forced. It's just kind of random, and it's not over-exerting the stutter. And I believe the parts when he is trying to convince the group that they need to go after this monster, that he's going to do it no matter what. You believe it. It's not like, hey, we gotta do this shit, let's go. No, he's pleading to the group, but it's not overly schmaltzy. You believe it. There's water running through the pipes, so hopefully it's not too distracting, but I'm not going to stop this video and try to do it while the water stops. The standout actress of this group is Bev, the actress who plays Bev. When we meet her, she's very likable, especially when she first meets young Ben, because he's got this crush on her, and she plays it off really, really cool, and she knows he likes her, type of thing, but she just plays it off, and it's very sweet. When she goes home and has to deal with her father, her abusive father, she's very sympathetic. You believe it. It's not overly, dramatic. And when she's with the boys, she seems like she's just one of the boys. She's there. She gives everybody shit. Her chemistry flows with them perfectly. I think she's going to be a future star. She's got a look to her. She's got an attitude to her. She's got a charisma to her. Very great. The kid who plays Richie. Richie is the comic relief, played by, I think his name is Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. He's fine. He gives us some much needed laughs, for some levity with this film. I buy it. It's not annoying. And what I like as this movie goes along, you can tell. Good, the water's done. You can tell that this comedy that he's doing is not necessarily him just trying to be an annoying dork. When he's starting to get scared and more as the situation goes on, you can tell it's kind of like a defense mechanism. Um, like I said, he's really funny. Most of the laughs I did from this film, I was surprised how much I laughed, was from him. I love how we're introduced to the group. We're introduced right away to Bill and Richie and Eddie, who I'll get to. They're coming out of the classroom because the school's over. They walk past a group of bullies, and the bullies are giving them this evil look. And then of course Richie tries to make the situation funny by saying, "Hey, you think they'll sign my yearbook? Dear Richie, I'm sorry I took that steaming dump in your backpack. Have a good summer." Stuff like that. Very funny. We'll get to Eddie. Eddie is the hypochondriac. He, other than Bev, is probably my favorite character because, yes, he's a hypochondriac. He's scared of, germs and this and that. But it's not overly annoying. I love how he just gets these little bits in. Like when they're in the sewers and they're searching for one of the missing kids. And he talks about how it's like brown water or backwater or whatever it's called. And, they're walking around in shit and piss. You believe that he doesn't want to go in there, not because he's scared, but just because it's fucking disgusting. And, I really like that. What is it? When they first meet Ben, I'll get to Ben. They first meet Ben because he had to deal with Henry Bowers, the bully, and Henry cut an H into Ben's belly. It'd be in 1989? 88? Anyways, he's talking about the AIDS epidemic, and he's worried about, touching blood, and he brings up one of the rumors that, someone shook their hand with AIDS or some shit like that. But it's believable because it's not overly thrown in your face. But he's also got a good chemistry with the other group. Like, it's like when you tease your friends. When you were kids, they would tease you, but you throw that shit right back in them. They pick up Eddie to go to the Barrens or whatever, which is their little hangout area. And Eddie opens up like a drawer, and it's full of fucking pills. And Richie looks at him. He's like, "Oh, is that your birth control?" And then Eddie looks at him. He's like, "Yeah, I'm using it to practice on your sister." Great chemistry, throwing shit at each other. Ben, he's the fat kid. New kid in town. He's the one that is researching, finds out all this stuff about the evil history of Derry. Really sympathetic, when he's, getting picked on by Henry. His crush on Beverly is actually very cute. I like it how when we first meet him and he meets Bev and he's dropping his diorama on the ground and she finds out he's listening to New Kids on the Block, which is an ongoing joke, which is actually funny. I don't care. I laughed the 2 times they made the New Kids on the Block joke. You bought this puppy dog crush of his. And it's fun. I really like. And man, this kid goes through hell. He gets carved up by Henry, and he gets slashed by a metal pole during a fight with Pennywise. This little fat kid is probably the strongest one of them all. Really good. My only disappointment with this group of kids, and it's nothing to do with the actor, is the kid who plays Mike. He's the black kid. If you don't know names, he's the black kid. And it's not really his fault. The problem is he's not given a lot to do. When he's on screen, he's fine. He's working with his grandpa on at a slaughterhouse for lambs. His grandpa is played by Stephen Williams from Jason Goes to Hell. It was nice seeing him for 2 minutes. And it's obviously foreshadowing because he can't shoot the bolt into their head, but we know he's going to be able to help the crew later. But there's not a lot of screen time. I mean, he gets beat up by Henry Bowers, but I wish there was more of him into the group, or at least he stood out more, which he didn't, which is disappointing because in the 1990 miniseries I loved the Mike Hanlon character more so when he was an adult, but he was decent when he was a kid. There was more of him. Anyways, that felt good. Overall, fantastic group of kids. Chemistry is great. Loved it. They played off each other great. They each made their characters unique, and it was great. You know, Ben wasn't just the fat kid, and all this and that. We'll talk Pennywise. Oh, Bill Skarsgård. I never seen him in anything before. I heard he was on Hemlock Grove, which I haven't seen. Watching him as Pennywise makes me want to go see him in Hemlock Grove. His problem is he's going to be compared to Tim Curry. He had big fucking clown shoes to fill, pun intended. I fucking loved him as Pennywise. He did his own thing. He made Pennywise menacing. I loved his voice, his high-pitched voice. I loved his body movements. Like when he's supposed to be terrorizing Eddie, he's walking up to Eddie like he's going to eat him. He just fucking came out of a refrigerator all twisted up, and then he moves his body and then straightens up, shakes his head like, you know, ow, that was uncomfortable. Then he sees Eddie and then he kind of strolls to him like this and that, and then he gets spooky and like grabs his face like he's terrorizing. I loved his giggle. It was a high-pitched giggle. You know, he's fantastic. He's very, very unnerving. Not necessarily scary and like a boo, I'm gonna get, just creepy. And I'll tell you why. The Georgie scene. Everybody knows the fucking Georgie scene. You know, Georgie has the little boat. The boat goes down the sewer. Pennywise catches it. And he tries to convince Georgie to come down with him. Well, with Bill Skarsgård's performance here, first off, I love the way the director just, you know, focuses on his eyes. You see his eyes out of the darkness and like the lower part of his mouth. Like the head up above the eyes, total blackness. But when he's talking to Georgie, he's trying to be friendly with Georgie. Calm, collective. And then he starts this conversation about how, you know, they've got popcorn down in the sewers because the wind blew the circus down into the sewers. And they go through this little cute popcorn bit of dialogue, and then it stops and it gets unnerving. And he's trying to convince Georgie, hey, come get your boat down here. And I got a little bit of a child molester vibe. Like, Pennywise is the molester and he's trying to get Georgie into his van, because it goes from cute to awkward, and even Georgie gets uncomfortable at the end, and you can tell that he just wants to leave, but he can't because Pennywise has the boat, so that's like the child molester with the candy or the toy. Really creepy, and I fucking bought it. There is not a lot of comedy to this at all. There's only one scene of comedy, I think, with Pennywise. And I'll just say it's the scene where Mike's getting hassled by the bullies, and he looks off and he sees Pennywise with a disembodied arm. I won't ruin that. But Skarsgård was great. Skarsgård made Pennywise his own. And I love the change of the voice from the, you know, the high-pitched voice to the deep guttural voice. I love, like, the scene where he's going to get Eddie, and the other two, I think it's Richie and Bill. They want to stop Pennywise, and they look, and then he, you know, he's terrorizing Eddie, and then he looks at Bill. He's like, "Am I not scary enough for you, Bill? Am I not real enough for you, Bill? I was real enough for Georgie." And just the voice changes, so good, loved it. And then the other characters are human characters, and they're probably more scary than Pennywise. Henry Bowers, the bully, really, really frightening if you think about it. He's maybe a sophomore, and you believe that this kid is just fucking nuts. You know, he comes from, you know, a shitty childhood probably. You don't know too much about his dad, just that he's a cop, and he knows, like, Henry's just a shit talker. But you believe that Henry is brutal with what he does, and he's scary at some scenes. We meet Patrick Hofstetter, which is kind of like a little lackey to Henry, and he's also just as twisted and enjoys, you know, the abuse that they do to, like, Ben. And his other buddies, like Vic and Belch, they're just there, you know, along for the ride. And I like how, you know, when he's carving the H into Ben, you know, I think it's Belch says, "Henry, that's enough." So, type of deal. Beverly's dad. He's probably the creepiest and most dangerous character here, the scariest character here, because he's definitely a fucking child molester. He's after Bev. I don't know if he's done it yet, but there's a scene where she's walking down, she's got long hair, and he grabs her hair and he smells it or something. He says, you know, "Are you still my little girl?" And this is just after she got back from the pharmacy buying Tampax and stuff. So that freaks her out, so she cuts all her hair off, and then after Pennywise scares her with, you know, the balloon in the sink and the blood everywhere. He comes in. Of course, he can't see the blood because only the kids that he's terrorizing can see what he's done. He doesn't see the blood, and then instead of her, you know, him making sure she's okay, he just looks at her and is like, "Why'd you cut your hair? You look like a boy." And then left disgusted. Gross. And then the pharmacist. The pharmacist is a definite pedo, because there's a scene where they meet Ben and they got to clean up his wound from Henry, and they don't have the money, so Beverly, you know, like I said, she's there buying some tampons or whatever. She kind of flirts with him, and so the kids can sneak out with the supplies, and he buys it. He eyes her up and down. He gives this fucking creepy smile. It's gross and disgusting. So, like what Stephen King does, he makes the human characters the worst. The score is really creepy. I really, really enjoy it. It's kind of like, it does this, kind of like the Friday the 13th reboot. You have this big, giant opening sequence, and then after that sequence happens, then you get the title card. I love that idea. Qualms. Not much. There are some scenes of CGI which are kind of, you know, I did not. The Georgie scene is great. Everything about it until Pennywise grabs Georgie's hands, and you actually see, instead of like Tim Curry just had like the fake teeth in it, you see Pennywise's face morph into whatever creature he is, and he bites on Georgie. That CGI I don't think was that great, but I can overlook it. And there's a couple other CGI parts, like, you know, when he kidnaps Bev and he hypnotizes her by opening up his face, you know, to like this weird vagina-looking creature, kind of like that, mixed with like the vampires from Blade 2. That's okay, but how are you going to do that practical in 2017? CGI is cheaper, I guess. That was okay. And then there's a scene where Bill confronts the ghost of Georgie and knows that it's not Georgie, and then it morphs into Pennywise, which is kind of an iffy CGI moment. My only other qualm with this film is after, like I said, Bev is kidnapped by Pennywise, and she looks at the deadlights. I'm not going to get into the deadlights because they don't get into it. You can Wikipedia that if you want to. She becomes catatonic, and then the group finds her, and then they wake her up, and the way they wake her up, I think, is just too schmaltzy and fairy tale. Don't like it at all. But that does not take away from this film. This film is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and it didn't drag one fucking bit. And what I liked is, even though a lot of people are saying, "Oh wow, it's the 80s," you know, they're stealing that from Stranger Things. I personally don't think so. I think they have to put it in the 80s to, you know, make it so when the sequel comes out, present day is in, you know, the kids, you know, are, what, 20, 30 years older? Whatever. It's fine. And it's not overly thrown in your face. I mean, haha, there's like a Gremlins poster, and Nightmare on Elm Street 5 is playing at the theater along with Lethal Weapon 2 and stuff like that. It's not overly thrown in your face. I love a lot of the sequences where Pennywise is tormenting the kids. The leper scene, you know, Eddie, a hypochondriac, I've said that like 300 times in this review. He meets a leper outside of this old, creepy fucking house, which I love the design of it. And, you know, Eddie, afraid of germs, meets this walking disease, and it's disgusting. My favorite one, though, is Bill. And he thinks he sees Georgie. He walks down into the basement. The basement is flooded because, you know, Derry is flooding. And he sees Georgie, and if you've seen it in the trailer, you know, he says, "Bill, come, you know, if you come with us, you'll float too," and he starts yelling that. But what you don't see in the trailer is Georgie's face starts morphing into like a zombie, and you slowly see Pennywise coming out of the water, and his eyes are crossed. And I guess Bill Skarsgård can really do that, and then he makes his eyes back to normal. And then Georgie is just yelling, "You'll float too." And then you see Pennywise. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but I gotta talk about it because it's so fucking cool. Georgie's yelling, "You'll float too," and then Pennywise, you see his mouth saying, "You'll float too." And then you see Pennywise's arm. He's holding Georgie like he's a fucking puppet. And after he's done saying, "You float too," he literally throws Georgie by the side, and he runs after Bill. That's creative, and I fucking loved it. One other problem I have with this film, and it's mainly just me, is I know the story. I've seen the miniseries. Other people might not have a problem if they've never read the book or never seen the miniseries. I know this is part one. So it takes away a lot of tension. I know none of the kids are going to die. Because the main thing about this film is they come, this book is they reunite to fight this demon or whatever it is. They don't even say it in the movie. Whatever this thing is, they reunite to fight this, what they fought 27 years before. So it kind of takes a little bit of steam out of it for me, but that's just something I have to deal with. I think this would work a lot better if it was all one film instead of having to wait. I mean, they haven't even started filming it yet. It's kind of like, it would have been easier if it was like Lord of the Rings, you filmed it all at once and then released it, a year after. That would have been fine. But overall, I highly, highly, highly recommend It 2017 version. The kids' performances, I love, the rock fight scene is good. I think it's Antisocial from Anthrax plays during the rock fight scene. Really liked it. Bill Skarsgård killed it as Pennywise. I thought he was great. Loved every time he was on the screen. The scares are basically jump scares. There's a few of them. The tone is what's scary more. The human characters are what's scary more. The scares are jump scares, though. There was one scene that almost got me. It got my wife. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to say the projector scene. And then we'll say the coffin scene with Richie. That's all I'll say. That got my wife a couple times. But I personally like jump scares. I think jump scares are fun. But yeah, long story short, even though it's already been a long story, definitely go see or stream or do whatever you can because it's making money. Stephen King's It, or I think it's just called It, 2017. Like I said, strong performances, great tone, great soundtrack. Flow is fantastic. Is it my favorite Stephen King film? No, that's still Pet Sematary, and Green Mile and Shawshank and Stand by Me. But this is a good one. I really, really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for part 2, whatever they're gonna call it. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell Pennywise. Click the bell. Watch my older stuff. I go through this spiel all the time. Cheers, and fuck, I'll just say it like I did the last review. You'll float too.